Okay, a little pregame.
Oh!
Hello, we made it.
Hi!
What time did we leave?
I woke up at 4.
We left at 6:15.
6:15.
Oh yeah, 6:15.
Oh yes, and we're waiting.
How could we forget?
We're waiting. And here we are in the Mojave Desert.
I've got fees on my head, but they don't call me a fee head.
Okay, so we'll be ready. What did you say? Okay.
From the Dryden Flight Research Center in California, you're looking at the NASA shuttle carrier aircraft, aircraft number NASA 905. 747 obtained from American Airlines. The aircraft originally built in 1970, turned over to NASA and configured, modified to support transport of space shuttle orbiters following landings away from the launch site at the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery over the course of the last week since its landing at Dryden at the Edwards Air Force Base facility has been configured for the ferry flight, as it's known, a fairly impressive site with 747 and Space Shuttle Orbiter Discovery following its 31st mission into space on the STS-114 mission. And Discovery just about ready to depart with a shuttle carrier aircraft underneath for the first leg of its trip back to Florida for processing for its next flight, anticipated to be the next shuttle mission, STS-121. Discovery's 14-day mission ended at the Edwards Air Force Base in the pre-dawn hours on August 9th after a 5.8 million-mile journey. The mission ended with a landing Pacific time at 5:11 a.m. On August 9th. And Discovery now on takeoff roll atop a 747 shuttle carrier aircraft, just about to begin the first leg of its return back to the Kennedy Space Center.
Oh yeah, huge.
When Karen Smith realized she wasn't able to shake what appeared to be
Wow.
she did just that.
Right before New Year's, I was out taking a walk up the hill by my house, and I noticed that I was seeing tons of light.
Look at that, wow.
After a visit to an optometrist, Karen was told that she had optic neuritis, an inflammation of the optic nerve.
The scary part about optic neuritis is that it has a very high...
I'm not getting it on video though. Are you?
Karen worked aggressively to get the test that she needed. An MRI revealed a lesion on the right.
Wow.
And knowing that, she signed up for
Wow.
optic neuritis treatment trial.
One of the things that they found was if they treat...
Look at that. Wow. How cool is that? Whoa. That's cool. Right over. That's cool.
Karen has to wait and see. Fortunately, she didn't take that approach to the body was competitive. She's a step ahead. I'm Christopher Springman, and it's all about
And the ferry flight of Discovery underway. The first stop, again, planned to be Altus Air Force Base in southwestern Oklahoma. It's about a 3-hour trip from California to Altus Air Force Base. It'll be a refueling stop, weather permitting. A couple of hour refueling stop, and then the next leg will take Discovery from Altus Air Force Base to an overnight stopover at Barksdale Air Force Base in central western Louisiana. The operational altitude for a ferry flight with a shuttle on its back is 15,000 feet. The 747 actually is led by about 100 miles out in front by a KC-135 aircraft, which basically flies weather reconnaissance for the 747 crew to provide near continuous commentary back to the 747 crew on any weather conditions that it could encounter on its route. The KC-135 is known as a pathfinder for exactly that. It basically checks the path for which the 747 with Discovery on its back would follow. There are actually two 747 shuttle carrier aircraft in the NASA fleet. The other aircraft, NASA 911, was obtained about 10 years ago. The footage of Discovery's departure coming from chase aircraft, including NASA's F-15, which is escorting the shuttle carrier aircraft with Discovery out of the Edwards area. The first leg of the trip, again, a 3-hour flight from California to the planned first stop, a refueling stop for the 747, Altus Air Force Base in southwestern Oklahoma. Once Discovery returns to the Kennedy Space Center with that arrival planned for tomorrow mid to late morning East Coast time, Discovery will then undergo about a 8 to 14 hour demate process from the 747. It'll then be transported from the shuttle landing facility back to its processing hangar, the orbiter processing facility adjacent to the large vehicle assembly building. And once in that processing hangar, Discovery will begin the process of work to prepare it for its next voyage, which will be the next shuttle flight currently targeted for March of 2006. The 747 on which Discovery is riding has been modified to support the same attach points that a shuttle has when it's attached to its external tank for launch. Preparations for a ferry flight typically take about 5 days to a week or so. Some of the delays associated with Discovery's ferry flight since its landing on August 9th were driven by Mother Nature, with some inclement weather in the Edwards area that slowed the process of preparations for the ferry flight. But Discovery now on its way, again planned to be a 2-day flight back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, weather permitting. The first leg, Altus Air Force Base in southwestern Oklahoma, for refueling of the 747, and then a departure mid to late afternoon from Altus Air Force Base with an overnight stopover planned at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. Some of the flying restrictions include flying no higher than about 15,000 feet in altitude. That's driven partially, in fact mostly, by the amount of fuel that the 747 can take on due to the heavy weight of the orbiter on its back. One of the other restrictions is that a shuttle ferry flight does not take place after dark. So thus the requirement for a 2-day ferry flight, particularly when traveling from west to east. Weather permitting, the plan for tomorrow is to depart Barksdale Air Force Base in the morning with a nonstop flight from there to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That's probably about a 2.5 hour flight or so from Barksdale in Louisiana to the shuttle landing facility at the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery's 31st voyage into space ended with a landing, pre-dawn landing, California time at the Edwards Air Force Base facility on August 9th, completing a 5.8 million mile journey. 14-day mission that began with launch on July 26th from the Kennedy Space Center. It was the sixth night landing in the shuttle program history out in California, with the and the 50th landing mission that ended with landing out in California. So Discovery now on its way back to the Kennedy Space Center atop a 747 aircraft. Some of the chase plane pictures, views coming courtesy of the F-18, NASA F-18 aircraft that's based actually at the Dryden Flight Research facility out in California, heading off into blue skies for a trip back to the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery now on its way. On the first leg, a 3-hour trip from Edwards to the Altus Air Force Base in southwestern Oklahoma, then for a refueling stop. The next stop, Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, for an overnight stay. And then the plans, weather permitting, will be a non-stop flight Saturday morning from Barksdale to the Kennedy Space Center shuttle landing facility.
So David, tell us what's your impressions of seeing Discovery fly over your head?
That was very cool. It was very neat, well worth the trip. Good job, Terry. I appreciate it. Even though I had to wait a little bit, it was totally worth it. It was fun. Good job.
Administrations. Hamas, for
What do you
instance,
think, buddy?
runs schools, health clinics,
Awesome.
social programs that in many
Fly right over
respects
your
are
head?
superior to the Palestinian authorities.